be presenting the TPR method followed by the silent way. Each will be introduced by a historical background and the researchers or practitioners associated with it. Then, I will carefully describe and explain each method. I will share with you the ideal candidates for each and finalize my presentation with questions for discussion. Let's begin! TPR, short for Total Physical Response, is a teaching method that marries speech with action. James Asher, a professor of psychology at San Jose State University, California, developed this method in the 1960s. It was inspired by developmental psychology, learning theory, humanistic pedagogy, and Harold and Dorothy Palmer's teaching procedures introduced in 1925. TPR is known to be related to the trace theory of memory psychology, where the more often a memory connection is traced, the stronger the memory association becomes, making it easier to recall. Verbal and physical retracing, when done simultaneously, increases the possibility of recollection. In addition, this method is meant to replicate a child's first language acquisition, where the child is given commands by adults and imitates their actions. Asher believed that this was the best way in achieving successful adult second language learning, since it is how they acquired their own mother tongue. Being similar to the developmental process of language learning, Asher was convinced that this method would reduce learner stress and create a positive mood, hence increasing the learning curve. The TPR method is viewed as being part of the comprehension approach and compatible with the natural approach, since in both cases the emphasis is first and foremost placed on the comprehension of the learner. Since Asher is convinced that second language learning happens in the same way that first language acquisition occurs, TPR is referred to as being a natural method. According to him, there are three main processes in language learning. The first process is that children develop their listening abilities before they are able to speak. They are able to understand complex structures without being able to produce or imitate them just quite yet. They are therefore storing these valuable structures in their brains in order to use them when they are ready. Secondly, children are able to comprehend language because they are required to respond physically to an adult's commands. And lastly, speech evolves naturally from having established a good listening comprehension foundation. Despite the recommendations to steer away from the behaviorist approach, Asher believed in action-based drills where the grammatical structure is learned inductively. This learning occurs by being exposed to the target language with the repeated use of imperative commands exemplified through stimulus response, where the stimulus is the command and the response is the physical action performed by the learner. TPR is mainly suggested for adult second language learners or foreign language learners at the beginner level. Learners are given imperative drills for about 120 hours before being able to utter their first words. They are taught a limited amount of new vocabulary at a time. Easy assimilation is the main criterion for choosing vocabulary items or grammatical features. According to the group size or level, it is possible to introduce 12 to 36 new lexical items during 1 hour class. The following example illustrates 3 possible stages of the TPR method. In the first stage, the teacher gives commands while doing the action, and the learners listen and imitate the teacher. Notice that the less proficient learner watches his peers' reaction in order to avoid making a mistake. Stand up. Sit down. Take the orange. Good. Put the orange down. Put the orange on the glass. Put the orange on the table. Good. During the second stage, the teacher only uses commands and the students perform what is asked. This example provides basic commands like get up or put the orange on the table. But as the time advances and the vocabulary becomes more complex, the teacher will be able to offer more elaborate sentences such as Pablo, drive your car around Miyako and honk your horn. Now, your turn. Stand up. Sit down. Take the orange. Put the orange on the glass. Good. Put the orange on the table. Good. Thank you. In stage 3, you will notice a role reversal. When the students are comfortable enough with certain commands, they can utter commands to their peers and instructor. A final stage is proposed by Asher, but will not be shown in the video. In this case, the teacher can write sentences on the board for the students to read and are encouraged to write them down as reading and writing exercise. Now, Mario, your turn.
Yeah. Jonathan. Set up.
Stand up.
Stand up. Yeah. Sit down.
Good.
Take the orange.
Good.
Put the orange on table.
Good, very good. Thank you. In these examples, it is noticeable that the learners have a low level of stress associated with demonstrating their comprehension with the use of actions. They found the activity amusing and thought it was a fun way to learn new vocabulary. In this portion of my presentation, I will be focusing on the silent way. This method was developed by Caleb Gattegno in the 1960s. As its name says, this method is done mostly silently by the teacher. It is thought that silence encourages more verbalization since people tend to get uncomfortable during long periods of silence. Therefore, by teaching in silence, the participation of the students is heightened due to the awkwardness. This method is based on more traditional methods such as situational language teaching and audiolingualism with a strong focus on repetition and guided elicitation. Gattegno puts emphasis on the need to grasp the spirit of the language, meaning the language's sound and melody. Opposing the TPR's naturalistic approach, Gattegno qualifies the silent way as being more of an artificial approach, since he strongly believes that second language learning is completely different from first language acquisition. His method is more of a problem-solving approach to learning, which, according to memory research, offers greater cognitive depth. Gattegno bases his learning hypotheses on cognitive-based approaches, where the learner is a lone scientist or an explorer that needs to become independent, autonomous, and responsible. According to Gattegno, the learner must discover or create rather than remember and repeat in order to achieve a higher level of understanding. It also helps to have mediating physical objects to aid comprehension. That is why, in order to conduct a successful silent way class, a teacher must be equipped with a set of colored rods, color-coded pronunciation and vocabulary charts, a pointer, and reading-writing exercises to illustrate the relationships between sound and meaning in the target language. In the charts, each sound is written in a different color so that the students can associate a sound with a specific color to ease pronunciation. Just like TPR, the imperative is the initial structure introduced. The vocabulary learnt is functional, which, according to Gattegno, is key to understanding the spirit of the language. In the silent way method, the teacher's role is to first model a sound or word by pointing at it on a chart and eliciting the student's responses silently by pointing at other words with similar sounds. The pointer can be used to illustrate stress patterns, phrasing, and intonation. Gateño states that his method can be used with advanced students. However, research is only limited to beginner-level foreign language speakers. An hour in a silent way class typically begins with 15 minutes of pronunciation. Then, vocabulary is learnt and sentence structures are elicited by associating different colored rods with specific words. In that manner, the students are able to move the rods around to experiment with the language and try to make new sentences by using prior knowledge. Video examples of this method are limited because of its limited use amongst language teachers. A link will be provided in the reference to access a video example. According to your own language learning experience, which method would you prefer? In reference to the TPR method, do you think the students can stay motivated just by performing commands? In reference to the silent way method, how is it possible to understand the spirit of the language without really being exposed to authentic speech?